Good evening, and welcome to the April 28th, 2026 Board of Adjustment meeting. Before we start tonight's meeting, I just want to let people know who may be in the audience or online that the request of Port Hunter LLC at 361 Miller Avenue and the Hope for Tomorrow Foundation application at 315 Banfield Road have postponed into the May meeting, and they will not be heard in tonight, okay? All right, so with that, we'll dive right in. Our first order of business is Roman numeral 1, new business A. The request of Lonza Biologics Incorporated owner for property located at 34 Harvest Way, whereas relief is needed to install 2 illuminated wall signs and 1 illuminated monument signs, which requires relief from the following. 1, from section 306.01D of the Pease Development Authority Ordinance to allow signs to exceed a maximum aggregate area of 2 square feet of sign area for each linear foot of street frontage, up to a maximum of 200 square feet. Said property is located on Assessor Map 305, Lot 5, and lies within the Airport Business Commercial District. Before we start with that, just a reminder, although I don't think this will probably come into play tonight, the applicants have 15 minutes to present their application to the board. If they feel they need more, you may ask ahead of time, and we can vote to grant you some more time. And those who are speaking to, for, against have 5 minutes. So with that, who is here to speak to the first application?
My name is Justin Parker from Classic Signs. That address is 13 Columbia Drive, Amherst, New Hampshire.
Okay.
All right. So yep, we're proposing to. They built a new building, and we're proposing to put some new signage up. Because Pease is its own kind of thing, they tally up the sign square footage by business, and Lonza's been there for quite some time, so they have over the aggregate area already of 200 square feet. The new building is 408 feet of frontage on Goose Bay Drive, so that would give us 816 allowable square feet. If it was regularly without the cap. And
I'm sorry, I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second. You're from the signage company?
yes,
And you have authority from Lonza to speak on their behalf tonight?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right. So I'll go through the narrative here. No adverse effect or diminution in values or surrounding properties would be suffered. The wall signs will not be illuminated, so there will be no light pollution from those. The monument sign will be halo lit, which is a less disruptive method of internal lighting. There are also other signs of similar size and type in the area. The sign will not be disruptive to the general character of the area. 2, granting the variance would be of benefit to the public interest. These signs would aid in the identification of this building while not posing any safety issues or blocking any views necessary for the safe passage of traffic. 3, denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship to the person seeking it. Due to the nature of this area and the special regulations, specifically regulating square footage not by parcel but by owner, the businesses that own multiple locations with more than enough foot frontage to justify the signs otherwise are not allowed to install additional signs on new building if they are at the square footage limit. 4, granting the variance would be a substantial justice. Granting this variance would allow this business to expand to other parcels without having to adjust their existing signage. 5, the proposed use would not be contrary to the spirit of this zoning rule. These signs would not pose any additional safety risks to the surrounding area and would help direct traffic to the correct building. These signs would also be consistent with the character of the surrounding area and these signs and the signs that this business already has. All right.
Okay. Just a question for or clarification for staff. And then we'll, actually, you know what, let me see. Are there any board members who have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Sullivan.
Will this sign that you're proposing, will this be visible from anywhere off of the airbase?
Off the airbase, most likely not, unless the boundaries of the airbase are not shown in the, unless they're right by Corporate Drive. You shouldn't be able to see these signs from the outside the airbase itself.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Ram, you had a question?
I do, thank you. So our history report that our staff puts together indicates that the only 2 prior approvals for the Lonza property were above-ground storage tanks, which I appreciate this is not yet another above-ground storage tank, but I'm curious, do you have any idea how Wanza came to have 770 square feet of aggregate sign area where 200 was the maximum without having to go get some type of zoning relief. Was that any part of the discussion?
I have no idea. A sign company that was originally handling this account went under Barlow Signs, so then our company kind of absorbed them. So I don't really have a lot of history with their history with it. I assume that they made the rest of the signs, but these are the only signs that I've had any sort of administrative experience with.
Okay. I guess follow-up for staff, was that a discussion point?
I can only speculate. What we have in the memo is what we had in our files.
Okay, thank you.
I have a comment related to that. It's perhaps slightly speculative, but I'm fairly certain I recall there was some like lot line changes and maybe that affected an address and how. So because the Lonza campus is maybe a few parcels, how that got distributed could have affected the what signage was being allocated to this
But
parcel.
the
It's
sign
by
area is
business.
allocated to the owner, not the parcel on the Ps.
Right. So that wouldn't
but-
matter. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Neese?
I'm not sure if this is a question for the applicant or staff or maybe board members with more history. Assuming I looked at the correct zoning rules for Ps, I didn't see anything in the sign ordinance for Ps that has this comment, has language in there that says it applies to a business rather than the parcel. Is that just the way they've been interpreting it, or did I miss it somewhere, or?
That's right in here.
Wait,
Yeah.
I mean, someone from the town denied the application due to this rule, so it has to be.
Frankly, it seems like an odd
Let's-
rule. That's why I was looking for it in writing. It just seems unusual.
Hold on, let me pull up the letter from Pease. I'm gonna need a second, so if you
Okay.
have any other questions.
All right, so in the interim, we're gonna just table that for a second while Steph is on the spot looking for that. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, I do just want to clarify with you, our notice, the legal notice says that these signs, the signs on the buildings are gonna be illuminated, and then, but you're saying for sure that the signs on the building are not going to be illuminated, correct?
Yeah, the only illuminated sign is the internally illuminated monument sign.
Okay, and that monument sign is across the street from you, is the Mass Brigham, the medical facility across the street from you. Is that monument gonna be more or less near where that sign is? And if you don't know, that's fine.
I may not, the edge of the map kind of cuts off. Do you mind if I point it out?
The screen, if,
Okay.
please, take the microphone and please do not touch the screen.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So where the monument sign is labeled C, that would be right there. I do have a site plan that says it more specifically, but around where the center of the C is about where that monument will go.
Okay, so that would be going on corporate, going towards international.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I work at a P, so I know the layout. Still putting poor Steph on the spot.
Sorry, my computer is,
Do not apologize.
I'm having trouble pulling it up. But, we do have a letter of decision from PDA, with a contingent approval, citing the source,
Okay.
which I can't find right now.
How about those Celtics? It says here, it's P's Land Use Code Part 306.01D. Find that.
306.01.
D.
D, signs shall not exceed a maximum aggregate area of 2 square feet of sign area for each linear foot of street frontage, up to a maximum of 200 square feet.
And then, does it say there about this area is calculated by business, not for each parcel? Because I did read that thinking it was part of the P's ordinance.
I don't think it is.
Nope.
If I may make a comment,
Yes, go ahead. Take a little pressure off staff.
just according to what was just read about 301B, whatever the number was, it does limit it to 200 square feet, so a variance will be needed whether or not we find the specific passage. So my question is, does finding that specific passage affect our decision?
I don't know what the square footage of the sign, the 3 signs that are being proposed are.
I mean, the total is 885
But that includes,
That
I think,
includes-
the ones from the Alonzo property
Yep.
on.
On this
National.
specific property, it is, if you don't mind me taking out my calculator, it is 45.59, 2 signs of the same size. That brings us to 91.18. And the monument sign is 22.5 square feet.
So what is the total signage area then?
113.68.
So 113.68, which puts it below the maximum in the zoning ordinance, the P zoning ordinance, and these are different lots. The other Lonza properties are on different lots, the ones that are on International Drive. And that includes that, if you look in our packet, on page 10 of our packet, the 101 International existing signs are calculated into that number.
I can't find it on the spot. I guess I would turn it back to the applicant and just, do you know where that came from?
It was denied, and, I mean, I didn't happen here by accident.
I'm sorry, it was what?
The application was denied in the portal, and then I had to get a variance and approved from the PDA.
It was denied in the portal for the city of Portsmouth, but not the PDA.
Yeah, somebody from Portsmouth said that I needed a variance.
Okay.
Sure, and then you went to PDA.
Yeah.
Had a meeting.
Yeah,
or,
they said
you know,
yes.
Had
and
the
then-
review, you got a letter of approval.
Yep.
But in your application materials, that is where it states where, this area is calculated by business, not for each parcel.
Yeah, so I put that because that's what I was told,
By whom?
whoever denied the application. I'm not sure. Either there's a big mix-up here or something.
I don't think there's a mix-up because P's referred this to the zoning board. They've given conditional approval. I don't know if we're gonna get our answer on that specifically tonight, but the fact that P's made a decision, it feels okay to me.
Okay.
And I wish my internet was working on this computer, but it's not.
It's still not working. I just, if you don't mind, Mr. Nees, I would just like to take a little prerogative here. The letter from Pease is January 29th, 2026, and I think it was supposed to be referred to us within 60 days.
Was it?
I believe so, yes.
Where does it say that?
Okay, so it definitely was January 29th, 2026, and then in our materials, let me just get back to the beginning.
Is that an excerpt from?
Yeah, so it is on page 6 of our packet, 317.03, and it is D.
Yeah.
Recommendation to the board regarding request for a zoning variance shall be made by the applicable zoning board of adjustment within 60 days of referral. Is the PDA letter of recommendation considered a referral?
Yes.
And then, but it got bounced back.
My guess is it, again, I can't get on my system to double check the dates, but did you apply to the city of Portsmouth a sign permit? It got denied and then you went to PDA?
I believe so.
Okay.
So that's outside, I think outside the 60-day.
Yeah.
The reality is, though, is that this is just a recommendation by representation of the applicant. The sign, aggregate area of the sign is less than 200 feet. Square feet, which means that it's likely wouldn't need to come to us anyway. So I think that I'm comfortable going forward with the application and making a recommendation, since I believe it probably is not properly before this board. But Ms. Janice?
I was going to suggest that whatever the board decides to do in this case, that we ask Pease to explain where this supposed interpretation came from. I mean, they're sending things to us, asking for a recommendation, which the applicant was told he needs to get a variance because it's applied by business. We don't have anything in writing that says that's how Pease applies their sign ordinance. And it arguably bears on whether it complies with the spirit of the Pease land use regulations, how you interpret it. If you're applying it by business, this is a no-brainer because it's less, or parcel, this is a no-brainer because it's less than 200 square feet. If you're applying it based on business rather than parcel, well, then you have to wrestle with the spirit of the ordinance question, which, it just seems odd that they don't have anything in their zoning ordinance in writing that says, this is how we interpret this. And whatever we decide to do, I think it's a fair question to ask Pease, can you please clarify this for us in the future?
Well, I think it's up to us to look at the zoning ordinance, so I'm not sure where that clinical glossa came from, but Steph cannot find that particular provision in her on-the-spot look at trying to see where that is in the Pease land use board. So are there any other questions or comments, recommendations?
Questions for staff, but I don't know if you want them now or wait.
Yes, go ahead. Let's just
So I'm just trying to understand, the letter that we have in our packet on page 17, is that the letter that we're saying referred this to the city? Is that the only correspondence that we've received from the Pease Development Authority?
That is typically all we get, yes.
So there's no, and really it wasn't addressed to the city, it was addressed to an engineer who works for Alonza, right?
Yes.
So, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, thoughts? So I don't know how just want to put this out, and I don't want to cause unnecessary work for you, but I think perhaps we could continue this for clarification on the Pease land use ordinance and the question of the referral, and it may not even need to be referred to us, so I don't know if board members are thinking that perhaps we need to get that clarification before you feel like you can vote on this. The business versus parcel clarification, the referral from the PDA, a more thorough look at the Pease land use.
Do we want to just close the public hearing and then figure that out? Or?
That would probably be helpful, yes. So, okay. Thank you very much. Anyone here to speak to for or against? All right. There's no one online? Not that you can get online, but,
This one's fine.
okay. All
I
right.
don't see anybody.
So I'm going to close the public hearing. We were talking so much. Board, what are your thoughts?
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Mr. Nees?
Madam Chair, I recommend we move forward on this. I mean, as is pointed out, it's not ultimately a final decision based on us. It's a recommendation to the Pease Development Authority. And I think that we should ask for a clarification, but I hate to see holding up the applicant one way or another, whether we recommend approval or not, for a clarification that might or might not affect a recommendation that they may or may not listen to.
Okay, thank you. Any seconds for that?
I'll second it.
Mr. Sullivan seconds. So, your motion, Mr. Nees? Do you want to make the motion, or?
I'm going to hold off on discussion here.
Yeah, I interpreted. I withdraw the second to the motion that wasn't made.
Yes, exactly. All right, so I need a motion on the table. Who would like to make a motion?
I would like more discussion, if that's possible.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I guess I'm in the opposite camp. That's great, but there is tons of confusion going on here. We don't know why this person's before us. We have explanation from the applicant's representative, the person that they chose to have come here, that doesn't seem to have all the answers that we need. It would seem to make sense to me. Perhaps the reason why they've gotten to 770 square feet is because, in fact, this 200 square foot interpretation is not correct. However, it is what the applicant is coming before us and saying. And we often hold the applicants to very high standards on, well, geez, you didn't give us the right information. So I just think there's a lot of questions here. I think we need to send it back both to the applicant and really get the right information put in front of us to help us to really understand why is this before us? What really is our recommendation that we would be making back to the Pease Development Authority, and for what reason? That's my thoughts on it.
Mr. Rossi?
I agree with my esteemed colleague, Mr. Ray
Anybody else?
Just my 2 cents is the fact that we don't get a lot of applicants requesting for variances when the actual nature of the variance is just a recommendation. So I don't know what that is talking about. Pease is a separate own entity. I mean, they're coming to us as literally a courtesy. Just like if the city wanted to do something on one of its parcels, it doesn't have to come to any land use boards. It goes to land use boards as a courtesy. So, yeah, I'm fine with moving forward as it is.
Any other thoughts from the board? I agree that I think that we should postpone this to May to clear up the issue about the business versus parcel square foot issue, and the other issues that we have raised. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, finish.
Okay, so I feel like as a precedent, I'm very uncomfortable with the board proceeding on an application with so many questions on the application. So I am supportive of continuing this and asking detailed questions of the applicant for him to come back to at the May meeting. So with that, Steph, you have something to say?
Yeah, I just have some timeline clarifications. So I was able to get onto my system. Thank you for your patience. It looks like in September is when the first sign permit was submitted. It was, referred to, or the discussion I'm summarizing here is you need to go to Pease, get a letter saying, your sign corresponds with the Pease ordinance. There's discussion saying, yep, we're gonna have to go get a variance from Pease. And then the actual land use application was filed first by the applicant on February 27th. It was not considered complete until March.
Okay, so we're still within the 60 days of the referral.
They did try, and we have high standards. We need certain things, so there was some back and forth. We need more, application materials, and then it was accepted as complete for the April meeting in March.
Okay,
Which may be emblematic of why we find ourselves in the situation that we're in, so.
all right. Thank you, Steph, for that clarification. Sorry to put you on the spot. Nothing like trying to find something with the whole room watching you. So with that, is there any more discussion before we proceed to a motion? Okay, so I'll ask the board for a motion, please.
Madam Chairman?
Mr. Rossi, is that who you're showing? Were you showing me, Mr. Rossi, or did you?
I'll
want to make-
I was raising my hand.
Oh,
If it's this way, it's Mr. Rossi.
okay.
No, I'll defer to Paul if Paul wants to make a motion.
No, that's okay. You're on a roll, Tom.
We'll see about that.
You need the hits.
All right, don't make me laugh. I have to do this and be serious. I do move that we continue the application until the, what is the next meeting? The May. What's the date? I can't remember.
May 19th?
The 19th, okay. The May 19th meeting.
Okay.
I would second that.
And your motion, please, and if you could be specific as to what we're asking for the applicant
Yes,
and/or the
the
staff.
motion is as follows. The application as presented to us tonight was unclear in terms of exactly what aspect of the Pease zoning ordinance we are being asked to make a recommendation for a variance against. And without having that clear knowledge, it is really impossible for us to judge whether or not the variance or the signage that's being proposed is qualified based on the various criteria for variance of the Pease zoning ordinance.
Any other?
That's already circular enough.
Okay. Mr. Ayum, anything for your second?
No, I'll agree with, and continue my second with that.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Neese?
I won't support the motion. We can't find anything in the record that says that this is applied to the business. However, somebody somewhere told the applicant that's what what it was. I won't support the motion because I don't think it warrants a delay.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? And Mr. Rayum?
Yeah, I'll just say, I mean, apparently this has been going on for months now. There doesn't seem like there's any major rush to get this resolved. We don't know exactly where all of this came from. To me, there's just more questions than there are answers. Why are we rushing to bail out a multi-billion-dollar corporation who wants to put up some signs? To me, that was their responsibility to be fully prepared and get their information here and make sure that we are able to understand exactly what it needs to be approved or recommended for whatever reason. So that's just my thought.
Any other thoughts?
Just related to what Mr. Ayum said, given the nature of the request and the nature of Lanza's business, I don't see a strong sense of urgency in pushing this through and establishing a precedent for this board of making decisions based on a level of lack of clarity as such as this.
So with that, I'm just going to ask staff if, I'm going to read back the motion and make sure that it encompasses all that staff thinks that we need to continue. So I just sort of shortened the motion in my notes here. The motion is to continue the application to the May 19th meeting so that the applicant can provide the specific section of the Pease Development zoning ordinance that is applicable.
And the supporting rationale for the variance.
I agree.
Okay, is there any,
So could you read that again? I think we know what specific zoning ordinance of the Pease was being applied. What we don't understand is the interpretation of how that's applied.
well, I think that comes into the rationale. I think we're looking for clarification on whether or not it's for business versus parcel.
I don't think the rationale you read said that, did it?
Well, I think the specific section of the Pease zoning development, the Pease zoning ordinance probably would cover whether or not that section of the zoning ordinance is business versus parcel, but I can certainly we can ask the maker of the motion and the seconder if they would actually,
Well, you added in the term and the rationale behind why it applies to this application. How about that?
okay. Because then we would get into the business versus parcel.
Right.
Parcel thing,
I'll accept that amendment.
okay. And the rationale behind the request. Okay, I'm gonna try this one more time. Here we go. The motion is to continue the application to the May 19th, 2026 zoning board of adjustment meeting with, so that the applicant will provide a specific section of the Pease Development Authority zoning ordinance that is applicable and this, with a supporting rationale behind the request.
The supporting rationale as to why the request is necessary. Because right now, everything we've seen says it shouldn't have been coming here.
If you can read this, I'll be shocked. Okay, one last time, folks. Motion is to continue the application to May 19th with the applicant to provide the specific section of the Pease Development zoning ordinance that is applicable with a supporting rationale as to why the request is necessary. Is that comporting with the first and second motion?
Yes, it's
I think
fine.
so.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any discussion on the motion? Mr. Nees?
So I'm being picky here on purpose, but the applicant told us what specific zoning ordinance applied, and he told us what he understood the rationale is for how it's applied. So what we need is not from the applicant. We need something, what we need from the applicant is documentation on why this is applied to by the business and not the parcel. And that rationale to me doesn't say that.
So how about documented rationale?
I think we're, again, overthinking
I think we
this.
are overthinking.
So, all right, I think it's clear through our discussion and through this motion that what we're looking for from the applicant. So, I'm just going to call the question for the motion as it is now. So, the motion is as stated. I'm going to start at this end of the board. Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Mr. Rayam?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Mr. Mannel?
No.
Mr. Neese?
No.
And the chair votes yes. So the application is continued until May. Thank you. Okay. All right. The second order of business is new business C. The request of Christina Logan, Revocable Trust owner for property located at 220 South Street, whereas relief is needed to build a chicken coop and have chickens, which requires the following. 1, a special exception from section 10.440, use number 17.20, to allow the keeping of farm animals where it is allowed by special exception. Said property is located on Assessor Map 111, Lot 1, and lies within the Single Residence B and Historic Districts. And who is here to speak to this application?
I am Christina Logan.
I'm Michael Graff.
Okay.
I've lived at 220 South Street since 1996, so that makes 30 years there.
And I've been there since 2018.
Yeah. This request is to keep chickens in our backyard, primarily as household pets, and also egg layers. We do not intend this to be in any way a chicken farm, or resemble in any way an agricultural enterprise. We simply eat a lot of eggs, and we'd like to keep a few chickens in our backyard, and we shall meet all of the following standards for this request. So the request is for a special exemption from Article 4, Section 1720, keeping of farm animals. And then Section 10.232.21, standards as provided by the ordinance for the particular use permitted by special exemption. So I understand that to be all the exemptions, or that we have to follow dash 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26. So 10-232-22 is no hazard to the public or adjacent property on account of potential fire, explosion, or release of toxic materials. No hazardous, toxic, or odorous nor flammable materials will be used to construct the coop, nor be stored on the premises at any time. We intend to keep a very healthy, organic environment for our chickens and continue to keep a well-organized garden in our backyard, as we have done so for 30 years. 10-232-23 states no detriment to the property value in the vicinity. I don't know if I need to read that whole piece. Should I read that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so no detriment to the property value in the vicinity or change in the essential characteristics of any area, including residential neighborhoods or businesses and industrial districts, on account of the location or scale of buildings and other structures, parking areas, access ways, odor, smoke, gas, dust, or other pollutant, noise, glare, heat, vibration, or unsightly odor, storage of equipment, vehicles, or materials. An 8-foot wide, 12-foot long, and not to exceed 10 feet at the peak chicken coop will be constructed to keep the chickens housed and safe from the general public and local wildlife predators. The coop will be located 10 feet from the north property line and 8 feet from the east property line. We'd like to locate the coop at this location, which I think we can see it on the screen. But we realize that in our district, there's a 10-foot setback for primary structures. If the board requires us to comply with this setback for an accessory structure, then we're willing to do so. Our request is to place chickens and the coop in the backyard, away from any streets. Our setting is very rural in character and far from immediate housing and any foot traffic. The coop will be made completely of natural wood, and the finishes will resemble the studio building on our property, keeping with the aesthetic character of the neighborhood and the surrounding area. 10-232-24, no creation of traffic, safety hazard, or substantial increase in the level of traffic congestion in the vicinity. We'll place the coop and the chickens in our backyard, away from any roads, sidewalks, or foot traffic. Eggs will not be available for the public for purchase, and therefore will not create any additional traffic to the property. We're just keeping the chickens for ourselves and the eggs for ourselves. 10-232-25, no excessive demand on municipal services, including but not limited to water, sewer, waste disposal, police and fire protection, schools. We'll keep a small flock. I had written here 6 to 10 chickens. That's what we had thought about, but I had seen in previous acceptance of chickens in the neighborhood that 6 was sort of a number, which I later found out. Laying hens, they will drink water similar to that of a household pet. The bedding that we're going to use will be of natural pine wood chips in a deep bedding system that will result in producing manure twice a year that will be used in our backyard garden beds, creating a closed loop system that will not produce any city waste. I'd like to take a moment here to talk more about waste. For years, we've been very careful on our property about taking care of all of our trash receptacles. We have a completely closed-in area in the house for trash and for waste. We do not have an outdoor compost bin because in the past, about 20 years ago, we had compost, and we noticed that waste can attract unwanted animals like skunks and raccoons. so we got rid of the compost pile. We've considered that keeping chickens can potentially pique the interest of wild predators like raccoons and fox, but we've done substantial research and are informed and well prepared to build a coop that will prevent unwanted predators from entering. And in my experience, predators go to a chicken coop that they can successfully harvest a chicken. Our coop will be designed and constructed in a manner to keep the chicken safe and predators from entering. And chicken feed will never be kept out in the open. It'll always be in an enclosed space. 10-232-26. No significant increase of stormwater runoff onto adjacent property or streets. The coop and the chickens will be in our grassy backyard in a very rural location, far from neighboring houses, driveways, and sidewalks. So here, I'd like to add that any stormwater runoff from the roof of the coop will be readily absorbed by the earth on our property and not run off onto any neighboring properties, because the land surrounding the coop in our backyard is flat and doesn't have any pitch towards any of the neighbors' properties. And then lastly, I have spoken to 8 of our immediate neighbors. 7 of them are in support of this application. 1 of them is opposed. The objecting neighbor is concerned with the smell from the coop and the attraction of predators. We've located the coop as far as possible on our property, away from our objecting neighbor and their property line.
I'd just like to add one
Yeah.
thing, and that is that I grew up with chickens and ducks and goats and sheep, and I know firsthand that 6 hens in a coop is not a major impact and will not be a deterrent to the neighborhood.
So thank you for hearing our request. If granted, we intend to keep our chickens with constant consideration of our surrounding neighborhood. And we're happy to take questions.
Thank you. Any questions for, let me see, I've been looking at this. Sorry, nothing over here. Mr. Rossi?
It sounds like you have a very well thought out plan, and if you'll indulge me and just provide me with a little additional education. I know absolutely nothing about raising chickens. The first question is, will the chickens always be in the coop, or do they free range at all? Or, how do you keep them from getting out onto Newcastle Road or
Little Harbor School walkway.
Yeah.
We're going to have a run for the chickens, so they can be in the coop. They'll be definitely in the coop at night. So every night that they'll be kind of housed in a structure. But during the day, they're not going to have a free run of the property. They'll have that's called a chicken run. That's a protected area that they can be outside in.
Is that a fenced-in area?
That'll be a fenced-in area.
Okay. And does the chicken coop require heating or cooling?
You want to answer that?
No. Sometimes people will use a light, and sometimes you'll have a heat line to water, but no heaters.
And the deep mulch technique that we're going to be using, hopefully, you keep on putting the pine shavings down, and by that winter time you have about 12 inches of pine shavings, and that creates kind of a natural heat for the system for them to stay warm. And it's going to have southern exposure, so that little building will keep them warm.
Thank you.
Mr. Ram?
So appreciate your clarification, I think, and I just want to get you on the record here. So you had said 6 to 10. In my experience in my many years on the board, 10 hens is quite a few, but you're saying that you're actually looking just for 6 hens maximum.
There's nothing that clearly states the number that is allowed under this
Sure.
special exemption, so we didn't know what to ask for.
Right, so
Right, so-
we were like, an ideal
So-
coop would have like 6 to 10 chickens, so that was kind of why we came up with that.
And my point in asking is that typically when this board has, in the past at any rate, approved the special exception, even though it is presented and advertised, we go above and beyond to make sure it's crystal clear to yourselves and to any neighbors exactly what we're looking at. So I'm trying to understand, is 6 hens your target, or do you think you need more to meet your desired needs? What exactly is your number?
If 6 is the limit that's allowable, then we'll ask for 6. So if you want to strike the 10, then we can say we're asking for 6.
I'm asking what you want, and, you know, what's your rationale for the number that you would like to have?
We would like 8.
Okay,
The rationale is the number of eggs that we can feed our family with.
okay.
So yes.
So if you had 8 hens, it would produce an egg, presumably that if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, it would produce your egg laying to the needs that you see for your family.
And there's always a fluctuation in the flock. You do lose birds occasionally and need to raise new ones.
Sure.
Yeah, but yes, we would, 8 would be
Okay.
perfect.
And then my next question for you is you talked about maybe a light or something. Is it your intent to electrify the coop?
No.
No, we can do that with solar.
Yeah.
And then there's like a little solar door that can open that up.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
We're all learning about chickens,
Just
right?
one question.
Mr. Sullivan?
Am I correct? I read your application to say that you will not have a rooster.
Correct.
Correct. Nobody wants a rooster.
That's it. No question.
Sure, hen. Any other questions, comments from the board? Okay. All right, so I do have a question about the odor. You talked about the odor in terms of like waste circulation, but the odor from the coop itself. Could you just describe that a little bit more, why that will not be a problem for your neighbors? Because that is one of the special exception criteria.
Yeah, so what happens with the pine chips is it's a deep bedding system that the Amish use. So you start with 2 inches of fresh pine chips, and they scratch in there, and the amount of space that you have, if you have a large amount of space for, let's say, the 8 chickens, then as they go to the bathroom in the pine chips, then you fluff them up and it sort of dissipates. This is not like, farming where you're trying to pack a lot of animals into a small space that would give that ammonia smell. And that ammonia smell is going to be bad for them. And then you just keep on layering more and more of the pine chips on in 2-inch increments, and then it sort of composts underneath and keeps them warm. And then by the time you get 12 inches in 6 months, then you're ready to take that out and start again.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay. All right, so I'm going to open this up to, thank you very much, you may sit.
Thank you.
I'm going to open this up to the public. The applicant has represented that 7 of the abutters are in favor, 1 is opposed for fear of predators and odor. But is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this application? There's no one online?
I have 2 pieces of paper that are letters of support. Everyone else who supports this.
Can you just speak into the microphone? Thank you.
Okay. So all of other neighbors who support us, some people don't like to put their names to things, but I have 2 letters of support here that I could give to
Okay,
you.
thank you. We will take those, but those will become part of the record. So,
That's fine.
okay. All right, if you could please hand them to Mr. Neese, and he'll circulate them down. So is there anyone here who would like to speak in opposition to this application? And is there anyone here?
There's somebody.
Oh, please come forward. And could you please state your name and your address?
Yes, my name is Rachel Rush, and my address is 232 South Street, Unit 2.
Okay.
And Christina and Michael are lovely neighbors, and they have a lovely family and a beautiful piece of property. I am the opposing neighbor to the chickens because of smell, a little bit of smell. And I don't know, I'm from Arkansas originally and have had chickens. So the smell is, the pine thing is different, and hopefully that's going to take care of the smell, which would be great.
Excuse
they
me.
have, I'm
Excuse
sorry.
me, Instead
yes.
of addressing the applicants, could you please address the board?
Pardon me. I don't know about the pine bedding, and hopefully that's going to take care of the odor. That's terrific. It is going to be on the other side of the property from my house, so I'm happy about that. I don't want skunks and raccoons and those sort of things, sort of looking around. And I am glad that it's, I know Michael's going to do like a 6-foot barrier down, which is great. They are going to be not burrowing in, but I don't want rodents. I don't know if a skunk is a rodent. Animals. So that's my opposition. It's not going to, you know, make me not like my neighbors and not make me want to move, but it's not my favorite thing to have next door. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. Is there
Thanks.
anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to this application? Okay. Is there anyone who would like to speak to, for, or against? Okay, seeing no one rise and no one online, I'll close the public hearing. I'll ask for the board to deliberate or make a motion. Mr. Nees?
I'm prepared to offer a motion unless people want to deliberate for a while.
Doesn't look like it. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to grant the special exception to raise up to 8 chickens as presented with the following comment. This special exception is vested without issuance of a building permit as it is not needed for the construction of an accessory structure of the size proposed.
Okay, and is there anyone?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Reynolds, you'll second. And I don't know if we need another stipulation as to the rooster.
That
So,
would be my request.
yeah, so I usually we stipulate that a rooster
Sure,
is not
I mean,
allowed.
that's what, it was presented that way.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
And roosters will not be raised.
okay. So, Mr. Nees, your motion.
So I'd like to make a few general comments. I recognize the concern of the neighbor over animals. The applicant seems to have a well-thought-out plan to try and reduce, anyway, the ability of animals to get at the chickens. I'm not sure that guarantees that they won't be attracted by them. You know, we know in Portsmouth that we've got coyotes roaming around. I've had foxes and coyotes in my backyard on Richards Avenue. I know it's a concern, but I think the applicant has made a legitimate attempt to try and address those concerns, and they're not going to want animals there because they eat chickens. So, you know, they're going to try and protect them. I'd like to go through the criteria. Standards is provided by this ordinance for the particular use permitted by special exception. Farm animals are allowed by special exception in this area. There aren't any real specific standards that apply, that are applied. No hazard to the public or adjacent property on account of potential fire, explosion, or release of toxic material. The one potentially toxic material people might be concerned about is the waste from the chickens. However, I think the applicant has a plan in place to minimize that. I'm not even sure that we can call compost toxic material according to the ordinance. I think they're looking at other things. No detriment to property values in the vicinity or change in the essential characteristics of any area, including residential neighborhoods or business and industrial districts, on account of the location or scale of buildings and other structures, parking areas, accessways, odors, smoke, gas, dust, or other pollutant, noise, glare, heat, vibration, or unsightly outdoor storage of equipment, vehicles, or other materials. We did ask questions, the board did ask questions about how odor would be controlled. I'm satisfied that the applicant has a plan to minimize odor. The location of the coop and the location of the chickens is about as far away from any adjoining house as it could be. Backs up to, I'm not quite sure what you call that area it backs up to, that's along the road to the walkway to Little Harbor School. I don't believe there will be any creation of a traffic safety hazard or a substantial increase in the level of traffic congestion in the vicinity. There's clearly not going to be any increase in traffic by raising 8 chickens in their backyard. The chickens are going to be controlled, and they're not going to be wandering around on the street, so I don't see any possibility of a traffic or safety hazard. I don't see any excessive demand on municipal services, including but not limited to water, sewer, waste disposal, police and fire protection, and schools. There's really no demands on municipal services at all. The applicant will be taking care of everything. No significant increase of stormwater runoff onto adjacent property or streets. While there probably is some runoff from the roof, it's going to wind up on a level terrain. In addition, it's not clear to me that there's actually going to be any increase based on the area involved. As pointed out in the conditions, we're not allowing roosters, and also there's no permit needed because this accessory structure is small enough that it's exempt from everything, including, I believe, the setback requirements and that sort of thing. So there's no need for a permit in this instance. And that's all I have to say.
Okay. Anything for your second, Mr. Mannel?
I agree with everything Mr. Nees laid out. I also agree because my daughter and son-in-law raise 18 chickens on their property in Berwick and use the exact same method you described. And you could ride up to the chicken coop and you wouldn't smell a thing. You'd more likely smell Hazel and Gus standing behind you. So I fully support the motion.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Ram?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I will be supporting the motion. One of the things I think that is helpful in this instance is this is actually an allowed use through special exception. In other instances, we've actually had people come before us with variance, which is a higher standard, I think. In this particular case, the ordinance does recognize that at least in SRB, which in theory the lots are probably bigger than the applicant's lot, but the neighborhood in general is such that there is enough open space, and certainly immediately behind this property, I think they do have the advantage of having kind of like a fairly open space, admittedly belonging to a neighboring property, but one that at least at the current point in time has not been further developed. So I think that also works in favor of what the applicant is proposing to do here. So with the lower threshold of criteria, and as Mr. Neese detailed, I do think that they are meeting it sufficiently to be able to say that they should have a maximum of 8 hens.
Any other comments or thoughts on the motion? Okay. So the motion is to approve, and I'll start over at this side of the board. Mr. Neese?
Yes.
Mr. Mannel?
Yes.
Vice Chair Mattson?
Yes.
Mr. Ram?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Your special exception is approved, 7-0. Thank you. The next and last order of business on tonight's agenda is new business E. The request of Brent and Susan Morrill, owners, for property located at 651 Woodbury Avenue, whereas relief is needed to construct a second driveway which requires the following. 1, a variance from section 10.1114.31 to allow a second driveway on the lot where only one is permitted. Said property is located on Assessor Map 220, Lot 12, and lies within the Single Residence B district. And who is here to speak to this application?
Good evening. My name is Joel Conley. I'm in with the debate group. I prepared the plans and the application itself.
Okay, I'm sorry. Somebody coughed when you said that. Can you please
Joel
identify
Connolly.
yourself again? Excuse, who are you again? I'm sorry.
Joel Connolly.
Okay.
I'm the surveyor who prepared the plans.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, I'm here on behalf of Brent and Susan Morrill. We're here to they're planning on building an ADU for their mother. I think it's her mother. And in doing so, they need a second driveway. The property currently has a driveway off Woodbury Ave, which is the busier of the two roads. The ADU is going to be sitting in the back of the property, nicely positioned, kind of fitting it with the neighborhood, and having the driveway off Edmund Ave. It has pretty clear sight distance. There's kind of a little overlay on Google Earth of where the house is going to sit on that image up there. It's pretty flat and open. It's got good sight distance in both directions. Like I said, it fits very well with the neighborhood. So really the only reason here is because, they need a second driveway because there's no way they could, use the existing driveway to service both the main residence and the ADU. So I can go through the 5 criteria. So first off, the zoning ordinance intent, the variance will not be contrary to the public interest because the zoning ordinance intent in limiting the number of driveways accessing a single parcel is to provide safe access by eliminating unnecessary access points. In this situation, adding the second driveway allows for safe access to the ADU. If not allowed, the additional vehicle traffic would access the property from Woodbury Ave, the busier of the two roads. I believe that this would cause an unnecessary, unsafe situation. The proposed driveway will provide safe access and is intended to meet all other driveway permit requirements. And the second exception is basically the same thing, it's been ruled that way. Then substantial justice will be done, because not allowing the second driveway will make it not feasible to build the ADU that is intended to be used by a family member. The use is consistent with the surrounding neighborhood, and not allowing the use would create an undue burden on the property. The benefit to the property owner, if granted, outweighs that of the general public if not granted. Number 4, the values of the surrounding properties will not be diminished. The construction of the driveway itself will have little to no effect on the surrounding properties. The construction of the ADU will fit well in the neighborhood and therefore will not have a negative effect on the value of surrounding properties. Additionally, new construction has been viewed as increasing surrounding property values. And lastly, little enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance will result in an unnecessary hardship. If relief is not granted, it would make it unrealistic to construct the by right ADU. The owner has the right to reasonable use of the property, and the proposed ADU is a reasonable use of the property. The second driveway is required to construct the ADU, and therefore the driveway is a reasonable use. Not allowing the second driveway, and in turn the ADU, would create an unnecessary hardship.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Nees?
I guess I've got one question. Well, actually, I might have two, but let me ask the first one. Driving by the house, there's the driveway on Woodbury Avenue, the current existing one, and it appears that there's a parking space / driveway where a pickup truck is parked off Edmond Avenue. So it seems like there's, in effect, 2 driveways already on the property. Is the plan to, within driveway for the ADU, is the plan to eliminate that parking space where the pickup truck is somehow?
Yes, that is correct. Yes, staff brought that up to our attention, and I asked the owners, and they're fine with eliminating that. They're going to make the ADU driveway a little bit larger to accommodate any vehicles that they would want to park yeah, and it's, because that is closer to the intersection, and, has been kind of viewed as potentially a hazard parking there,
So that will be eliminated when the driveway?
Correct, yep, that's part of this. They're going to eliminate that, and they'll make extra room in the ADU driveway to accommodate a second vehicle.
And just a second question, while not directly related to the variance request, I was looking at the ADU and I noticed that there's a full basement. I'm assuming that that's not going to be living space, because if so, it would exceed the 750 square feet for a detached ADU?
Yep, correct. That's just going to be for utilities only.
Thank you.
And storage, probably.
Thank you. Any other questions from over here? Mr. Am?
I would second Mr. Neese's question. Now, oddly enough, that truck also shows up on Google Maps, so I'm not sure if that truck actually moves or not, but I appreciate your answer on that. My other question actually is for staff on the setback requirements in the existing proposed conditions table. You have the ADU required side and rear yard feet. The permitted required is 13.6 feet minimum. I couldn't find that in our ordinance. Is there something I'm missing?
It's a height ratio, right?
Yeah, so it's considered an accessory structure more than 100 square feet in area.
Yeah.
So it's the height of the structure, which is 13 and a half.
Yeah, that's what we calculated it based on the average from the peak to the eaves.
Yep.
Okay. Because it's normally 10 feet for the SRB, right, for a side yard?
I believe I was under the impression it was 15. Hold on.
10 for the side, 30 for the.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's that would be a rear.
That was a staff discussion with the.
Yeah, so the opposite lot line of Woodbury Ave, the opposite and most distant is a rear. So it wouldn't be the side, it would be the rear.
My original plans actually had it
Okay.
correctly, because I had it as a side, and apparently it's not.
Okay, yeah, I guess it was kind of combined there, required side and rear yards, so that's what threw me off. Okay, got it, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. All right, thank you very much.
I do have one letter, I don't know if you guys got that from one of the abutters in favor.
We do not have anything up here. I don't know if we had late public comment today, but you can submit that if you could please give that to Mr. Nees. It was a very important job of handing down the public comments. So, thank you. Okay, with that, I'll open the public hearing and ask if there is anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this application. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this application? And is there anyone who would like to speak to, for, or against? And there's no one online, Steph? No. Okay. All right, so with that, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion or deliberation by the board.
Madam Chairman?
Mr. Nees.
Madam Chairman, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay.
I move to grant the variance for the application as presented and advertised, with one condition. The applicant is required to eliminate the existing single parking space on Edmund Avenue next to the existing home.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Nees, your motion?
I'll go through the criteria. First, just noting that the detached accessory dwelling unit is by right. All we're being asked to approve here is a second driveway which facilitates access to the DADU. Granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. I don't see how putting in a driveway will have any effect on the health, safety, or welfare of the neighborhood. It will have no effect on light and air. It does not alter the essential characteristics of the neighborhood by putting the driveway in. In some respects, you might argue that allowing this driveway will help the safety of the neighborhood by having less traffic come in and out of the property from Woodbury Avenue. These are also reasons why I think granting the variance would deserve the spirit of the ordinance. These two criteria are typically considered together, and I would include the same rationale for that. Granting the variance will do substantial justice. I can't see any benefit to the public by denying the variance. In fact, that would create potentially some traffic concerns on Woodbury Avenue. So I don't see any benefit to the public by denial that outweighs the loss to the applicant. Granting the variance would not diminish the values of surrounding properties. This is going to be a small detached accessory dwelling unit with a garage. There's no evidence been presented, and no one has argued that this will diminish the value of surrounding properties. It seems unlikely that it will. Moving on to the final criteria, commonly referred to as the hardship criteria. There are some special conditions to this property. It's a relatively narrow corner lot on a heavily trafficked road, Woodbury Avenue. There's really no way to access the proposed ADU in a safe manner from Woodbury Avenue if you look at where the house is located and the existing driveway because of the location of the existing buildings. Because of these special conditions, I think I did point out it was a corner lot. Yeah, sorry, wanted to make sure I mentioned that. Because of these special conditions, they distinguish it from other properties in the area. There does not appear to be any fair and substantial relationship between the purposes of the ordinance and specific application to this property, and the use is reasonable. You know, the idea of having properties restricted to one driveway is to minimize the number of driveways on any particular street. This is on a different street. It's not going to be two driveways on the same street feeding into the same property. There's really no reason to enforce these specific ordinance on this property that I can see.
Thank you. Anything from the second?
I agree with everything Mr. Neese said. As far as the stipulation goes, all we can do is ask that the homeowner acts in good faith. Considering there's absolutely no barrier between Edmund Avenue and the property. There's no curb, there's no sidewalk, there's no hedge, so on and so forth. So the stipulation is based upon the applicant's, the homeowner's good faith.
but it's a stipulation of approval, so it's enforcement.
Correct.
Okay, is there any discussion on the motion, Mr. Ram?
Yeah, I will be supporting the motion, and I do think the stipulation is helpful. I kind of agree with Mr. Mantle that, you know, if the city really wanted to enforce this all along, that they, you know, should have put in a sidewalk or curbing of some sort. That whole neighborhood going around, you can definitely tell that there's certain properties where there's like a well-worn cutout where people have been sort of taking advantage of that to create their own sort of personal parking spot, typically parallel to the street. I think this is the one I saw that was perpendicular to the street. But at the same point in time, I think the stipulation is important because in the future, should the city choose to put in a curbing or a sidewalk, it would truly reflect from a planning standpoint that the property is only allowed the one driveway. So I think there is value in the stipulation.
Thank you. Any other comments on the motion? Okay, with that, I will call the motion. The motion is to approve with the stipulation as contained in our packet. Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Okay. Mr.
Yes.
Rossi? Mr. Ram?
Yes.
Vice Chair Mattson?
Yes.
Mr. Mantle?
Yes.
Mr. Neese?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. The application is approved 7-0. Thank you. Okay, so before we adjourn, I just want to give everybody a heads up that there are 12 applications for May. We will be splitting the agenda again, and you may be wondering, given that we only had 3 applications tonight, why we did split. Steph and I make the decision at the beginning of the month based on how many applications there are, and then sometimes they postpone, and we've already made the decision. So just so you understand, that's why we're doing it.
So those would be the 19th and the 26th?
The 12th and the
19th and the 26th.
19th and the 26th.
I will be absent the 19th.
Okay. Okay. All right. Mr. Neese?
I take it, you know, you had mentioned in the work session, or last week, I forget which, about wanting to talk about submission of documents. Is that postponed till the future?
It is due to problems with the city server on Friday. We weren't able to put it on the agenda. It doesn't need to be noticed, but it does need to be on the agenda. So at a good point in the next few months, when we get a light meeting, hopefully we can stick that in there. So, okay. All right. So can I get the favorite motion of the night?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.